everybody. Jeff Jones here. Welcome to the weekly Chase Oaks Church podcast. Before we dive in, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and download the Chase Oaks Church app. The app is the best place to catch up on messages, engage with our community, and stay in the loop with everything going on around here. Most importantly, my hope is that today's message inspires you to take your next step in your faith journey. Here we go. All right, good to see you, everybody. Really glad you're here as we continue a series about things Jesus never said, and we will talk about Reimagine too. And that song we just heard, Old Country Church, somehow makes me want to say Roll Tide. I think just the country in me. I mean, I grew up in Alabama. I'm not really in the country though, but it does make me wonder what your experience is of church, either growing up or leading to this place. When you hear Old Country Church, was yours an Old Country Church or a New City Church or no church or something else? Or does it bring back precious memories or not at all? You know, because for some, church is a wonderful thing when you think about growing up, and for others, maybe nothing because you didn't grow up with it, or maybe you're trying to get over it. Church hurt and whatever was going on, hypocrisy or just judgmentalism or damage or whatever. And because church can be wonderful and it can be really terrible. And so whether your church experience has been good, bad, or ugly, what I know, I don't know your church experience, but what I know is that what Jesus is doing in the world today, and one day he'll come back and he'll complete the job as he's bringing restoration and redemption, as he's pulling people into relationship to him. He's doing all that through his church. That's what he's chosen to use. He said it, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And he called his church to be not just an institution, not just a building, not just a group of people to hang out, but a ecclesia is the word, which is a movement. We translate church, but it means a movement, a gathering around a mission. And when a church is on mission and joins him in that, when church works and is healthy and focused, it's a beautiful thing. It's a powerful thing. But when it's not, it can be powerful, but powerful in the wrong direction. It can be really disappointing, it can be really damaging, or sometimes just kind of not that relevant, not that impactful. And so today we want to, as we're in this series, which is Things Jesus Never Said, what we're saying today, by the way, next week we go back to the fruit of the Spirit. So we had the fruitful series, but we didn't get through all of them, which is, hey, what does transformation look like? What are the character qualities that'll grow in our life as we're growing? And all of us want to grow in these. So at next week, when we do Mother's Day, we're talking about goodness. Not that the mothers are, it's good. No, it's actually what goodness is and what God calls all of us to be. So that's next week. But this week, with Things Jesus Never Said, just looking at, I think a lot of people think this, and that is this idea that church is for church people. And I've heard people even argue that, yeah, church is for church people. And in some ways, I guess it makes sense because church people pay the bills. So, build it around what the preferences and comfort and all that of church people. But that's not what Jesus said. And you and I, if we make it about ourselves, we'll actually miss what Jesus is doing in the world and find ourselves on the outside looking in a frustration to him rather than a joy to him. And so today we're going to look at that and then talk about what does it mean to continue to reimagine church for generation as it's incumbent on every generation to do. Because when Jesus started the church, he started it with a mission. The way one friend of mine says it, it's not that the church has a mission, but that the mission has a church. Because Jesus came with his mission and he formed ecclesia, he formed the church to be his movement, to join him on mission. And here's one of the ways God talks about that. When Jesus, after he resurrected, before he went to heaven, before he ascended, he spent 40 days with his closest followers, about 120 of them, and just reiterating, guys, and girls, this is your job. This is what I'm leaving you to do. This is what this is all about. And Acts 1:8 was one of those passages. You'll be my witnesses, starting right where you are in Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, which was a whole other race of people they didn't like, and then the Gentiles and the nations. And so you don't stay, you're going to go. Or in Matthew 28, here's how he said it. And he starts and he says, all authority has been given to me. Now that's important for us to understand before we actually look at the mission, because Jesus is the one with all authority. It is his church. Like you and I don't get to decide, well, what do we want the mission of our church to be? Let's get some consultants or let's talk about it. What do you want it to be? What would you like? We don't really get to do that because it's not our church. It's not my church. It's not your church. It's Jesus' church. He's the Lord of the church. Jesus said, I will build my church. It's his church. All authority has been given to him. So when we join him and follow him, we follow him into a life of mission to say, okay, I'm under your authority. And as a church, we're yours. You're the CEO. You're the leader of this place. And here's the mission. He said, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I'm with you always until the end of the age. Meaning I'll be with you. He's inviting us to join him, but the mission, go and make disciples of all nations. Now, this would have been really daunting for those early Christians because there's only like a little over 100 of them. And their job is to take the message of Jesus and the redemptive power of Jesus to reach the nations, to reach the world. And that's why it would have felt really good to say, it's okay, I'm gonna be with you, because you know how many people in the nations outside of right where they were in Israel, because Christianity starts as Jewish, Jesus the Jewish Messiah, but he came to reach the world. You know how many people outside of that area knew about Jesus in the nations? Zero. Nobody. And their job was to disciple the nations. Well, what does that mean? To disciple the nations, to disciple. Well, nobody was following Jesus, so their job was to take the message of Jesus into the whole world of people that didn't even know about him and turn people who don't follow Jesus into people who do follow Jesus, give them the opportunity to do that, to disciple the nations. And it starts with baptism. That's the first step of a disciple. When you and I begin to follow Jesus, a disciple is a learner. A disciple is a person who says, I'm going to submit to Jesus. And the first step of that is baptism. And I say that now because in the passage, but also in 2 weeks, as we just heard, there's a baptism. And if you have yet to be baptized and you want to follow Jesus, you want to make that step, or maybe you already have, just never gotten baptized, let me encourage you to go to the hub or call later and jump in and get baptized. So it starts with baptism. That's the first step. And then teaching them to obey all that I've commanded. Now that's important to understand. He doesn't just say teach people what I commanded, but teach people to obey all that I've commanded. That's what discipleship is learning to live the way Jesus calls us to live. And that's one of the ways churches can go south. Because if we just build it around teaching, if we just build it around being biblical, and it's a good thing, teaching's good, I'm all for being biblical, but that's not the bar. God doesn't call us just to be biblical, like we're right, and they're wrong, we're deep, they're shallow. That actually can lead to problems. He calls us to obey what he has put in his word. And therefore, our bar is not being biblical, it's being Christ-like. It's being like Jesus. And yeah, if you're biblical, that's gonna help you become like Jesus. But when a church feels like it's biblical, but they don't act like Jesus, and they're arrogant, and they're mean, and they're judgmental and all that, that's a problem, right? And that's where a lot of people get hurt. So teach people to obey all that I've commanded. You know the most important command? Jesus said it. He said, the new command I leave with you. I mean, there's a lot of things, but he said, the new command I leave with you is this. This is your deal. Love people the way I've loved you. That's how people will know you're my disciple. If you love people the way I've loved you. And what should be happening in any church is that we should be known. The first thing people think of when they hear Christian, oh, you're a Christian, is wow, you guys are crazy. How you love people. How you sacrifice for people who disagree with you. how you love people who don't even love you back, how God uses you to change a community. I'm so glad you're here. That's what God calls the church to be. Well, so that was the mission for them to, as all Jewish Christians at the time, because that's who they were, to say, okay, you can't just stay here, you got to go and figure out how to reimagine how we do church in order to reach a whole new group of people. And then Jesus leaves. The Holy Spirit comes to empower them, God the Holy Spirit. And what do the disciples and what do those early Christians do? I mean, they've got the job to go to the world, to go to the nations. And you know what they do? They resist it. They don't go. They stay. Because here's the problem. Because all of us are sinful people. And sin nature, when you put it to religion, when you put it to church, we're just a bunch of sinners trying to follow Jesus. And therefore, there's always this gravitational pull to make it about us. There's a gravitational pull to make church internally focused, to make church kind of around our preferences, around what feels comfortable, what feels safe for us. And we end up missing the mission and frustrating the plan of God. And that's what happened in the early church. They reached people in Jerusalem. That's cool. But the whole going to Samaria and going to the nations, they didn't go. It takes 20 years for that to happen in the story of the church. And God has to break that down because the gravitational pull is always toward internal focus, not an external mission. So one of the ways God breaks that down is he sends persecution. For these Jewish Christians, the Jewish people, the Jewish authorities didn't like Christianity, so there's a terrible persecution. It scatters the Christians. They have to run. They have to leave. And for the first time, they go outside of Israel to Syria in a place called Antioch, and the first church is born that's a Gentile church, that's a nation's church. And it starts with just Jewish people who live in Syria, who live in Antioch, but then Gentiles start hearing about Jesus, and the church starts exploding in a good way with Gentiles who are coming to know Jesus. And you might think that people in the Jerusalem church, some of the disciples, all that, be like, yeah, this is amazing, this is incredible. But no, they're threatened by it. They're like, they're gonna ruin church like these Gentiles, because they look down their nose at the Gentiles. They look down their nose at the people because they were pagans, they were sinners, they were people that had been their enemies, and now they're supposed to reach them. And so God's got to break all this down. And so when the Gentiles start, coming to church, and it takes on a whole new, the Antioch church was so different than the Jerusalem church. It was threatening to the Jerusalem church. And so they send a guy named Barnabas, one of their leaders, to go and kind of make it right. The problem for them, though, is Barnabas was the wrong guy to send. Because Barnabas was a cool guy. He was an encouraging guy. He understood what God was doing. He was open to new things that God was doing. And when he sees what's happening in this church, it is so much more vibrant. It is not legalistic. It is God is working, and he's reaching people, and he's changing their community. And so to help him, he goes and he gets a guy named Paul, who's a new convert, this Pharisee that was persecuting Christians, that was behind the big persecution in the first place, that have now converted to Jesus. He doesn't go to a Jerusalem church. He doesn't want one of them. He goes and gets Paul, and Paul and Barnabas become leaders in this church. They appoint Gentiles to be on the leadership team of the church. The church is going great guns, but very different, and it comes to a head. There's a conflict. And they have this meeting called the Jerusalem Council. And at the Jerusalem Council is the leaders of the Jerusalem church, some of the disciples and all that who are having a hard time understanding how God could do this, and Paul and Barnabas and others who are kind of open to the new thing God is doing, open to reimagining church to reach a whole new group of people. Peter was now one of those people too. They come and they have this big gathering, and they're arguing back and forth and trying to figure it out. And finally, James, who was the key leader of the Jerusalem church and Jesus' brother, grew up with Jesus, says this, and I love this verse. And so my judgment is this, that we should not make it difficult. And actually the grammar is we should no longer make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. We should no longer make it difficult for the people who are coming to God, for the Gentiles who are coming to God, that God is reaching. We should no longer make that difficult. And when you think about what we do as a church, and you think, well, what does God call the church to be? What kind of church is Chase Oaks to be? This is one of those verses. I mean, write it down when you think about it. Because a friend of mine actually has this on his wall. He's a pastor, he has it on his wall, looks at it. That we will not make it difficult for people who are turning to God. And yet we're gonna grow and we're gonna do Christian stuff and but in the context of a mission that says we're gonna remove every obstacle possible to anybody choosing to follow Jesus who doesn't follow Jesus. Well, that's all Paul needed and Barnabas needed. Because right after this, the Holy Spirit kind of tags them and says, okay, now we're gonna take Christianity to the nations. And they start the first missionary journey. And listen to what Paul, his mentality, because if you wanna understand what Chase Oaks, kind of who we are and what makes us us, and some of you are new to the church and you're like, yeah, I don't know, I think I like this place, but it's kind of weird. There's some weird things going on and I don't know what that is. And here, let me just, love us or hate us, this is one of those passages that define us. Paul says this, though I am free and belong to no one, I've made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. Meaning I choose to set aside my comfort, my preferences, my freedom for a bigger thing, to win as many people to Jesus as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, the Gentiles, I became like one not having the law, though I'm not free from God's law, but I'm under Christ's law, which is love, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. I become all things to all people, so that by all possible means, I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. What Paul is saying is, I'm joining Jesus in mission, therefore it's not about me. I'll set aside my comfort, my preference, my safety for the sake of winning as many people as possible by all possible means. In fact, I want us to read that together. Can we read that together? By all possible means. We can do better. By all possible means. I believe God calls every church, certainly we want to be, a by all possible means church. To say, as another friend of mine says, if we're gonna reach people nobody is reaching, we've got to be willing to do things nobody's doing. We've got to be willing to reimagine church, not just do it what's comfortable for us, not just stay safe, but to follow Jesus in mission, who's building his church in a way that prevails, that reaches people that nobody's reaching, and willing to think about by all possible means. That's the heart of Reimagine. The Reimagine kind of project it kind of calls our play in a long way as a church for the next few years as we think about how do we reimagine church to reach people that nobody's reaching, to reach a whole new generation. To not just do church for church people, but do church in a way that non-church people be able to connect to win as many as possible. What would that look like? And a couple of years ago, this is 2 years in, and it's a 2-year project. So 2 years ago, this weekend, a lot of us made financial commitments to do some things in above and beyond our regular giving, and gave by faith and sacrificially. And a lot of us are still, it'll go to the end of the year in terms of people paying it out, but it was the 2-year mark to this weekend that we made those commitments. And so therefore, want to just say, hey, here's where we are, here's what's happening, because there is a lot happening. It was around 3 major kind of means, by all possible means. You'll see that as part of the project. But it is crazy cool. Like way beyond what we were asking or imagining, what God has been doing. And so there's a video, because, picture's worth 1,000 words, that'll show, okay, this is what's up. And then we'll look at what's ahead. Let's watch together.
What happens when the way we do church isn't relevant anymore? Well, 2 years ago, we took a bold step as a church to think like missionaries again in a rapidly changing culture. A culture where negative perceptions of Christianity have grown, where many churches were in fight or flight mode, and where many people today, church is no longer a regular rhythm of their lives. So we asked ourselves, how do we reach our culture and community with the radical love of Jesus? How do we reimagine church in a new era? And together, we answered that question. Because of you and your generosity, we committed $15 million to launch Reimagine, which is built on 3 key ideas. The first was activating our spaces. We wanted to reimagine how our buildings could bless our communities and meet the needs of our neighbors throughout the week. 2 years later, there is so much to celebrate. Through Pathways Childcare at the Chase Oaks Legacy and Woodbridge campuses, we are helping meet a critical need in our community and serving more than 100 families. Local Good Coffee Co. has become a vibrant hub of connection and community. Neighbors, families, and co-workers connect there every day over coffee, pickleball, and the playground. And because of this initiative, we are launching a brand new campus in Melissa. This will be a reimagined campus because we aren't just building church buildings anymore. We've officially partnered with the City of Melissa, who invested a centrally located piece of land as they asked Chase Oaks to help meet a critical need: community space that can serve as a hub of connection in the heart of this growing city. That leads to the second key focus of Reimagine: to amplify local good. For years, thousands of people from our church have served through local good initiatives, and the impact continues to grow. Over the past 2 years, we've expanded key programs like ESL, foster care, and job readiness, meeting real tangible needs across our communities. In 2024, the Local Good Center was recognized as Partner of the Year by the North Texas Food Bank. That honor reflects the incredible impact being made every single week by volunteers who care deeply about their neighbors. In 2025, because of Reimagine, Local Good Resale opened, creating a space where our community can come and shop, donate, and give back all at the same time. Every purchase helps fund local good programs that serve people across our cities. And the third focus of Reimagine is anchoring the faith of the next generation, because we know the faith of the next generation is worth everything. Through this initiative, we were able to completely redesign the Kids Co space here at Sloan Creek to better serve our families. We also expanded the student space at Woodbridge campus, creating a much-needed place for students to connect and invite their friends. And Reimagine made it possible to make pivotal experiences like camp, mission trips, and senior retreat more accessible and affordable for every student who wants to go. We saw record attendance at Winter Chill and student camps, with hundreds of students stepping away from distractions and into powerful experiences with God. Well, what an incredible 2 years it's been, and we're just getting started. Because Reimagine is more than buildings and programs, it's about perspective. It's about choosing to see our culture as a mission field and not a battleground. It's about changing the perception of Christianity to be known by our love. And that's what Jesus prayed. So thank you for your generosity, for your commitment, for your prayers to stay on mission in a complex cultural time. Thank you for showing the radical love of Jesus in our community. Let's continue to reimagine together.
Well, let's praise God for what's happened and what's happening in these 2 years. And I want to give a little bit more color to it because it really is amazing. And for those of you who are participating financially, thank you, because that's how God does it. He does it through us. And we get to play, we get to participate, and we get our faith to grow as he invites us to join him. But three main things. We say by all possible means. The first one, anchoring the faith of the next generation. They talked about it in there, what we were able to do at Sloan Creek and the campus for Kids Co. at Woodbridge for students. But also, you provide money to make camps affordable in mission trips. Please be praying for those camps. This summer is so critical because we do have record attendance of both of those because of you, because of your generosity. And so much life change is possible maybe that's where you found Jesus, or that's where you made a big decision growing up at some kind of camp, or you get people out off screens. You have to put your phone away. Can you imagine that? And for a few days and be able to interact and consider all that God has, all that God wants to do. And we just Christy and I just came back from one of those retreats, the senior and high school retreat. And that's funded by Reimagine. And it's just so amazing. Like these young men and women, we just walked away thinking, man, the future is going to be awesome. And because they have their heads on straight, their hearts right, and I believe God is going to do really, really big things through them. And so it was just great to be able to connect at such a pivotal time in life. And so thank you for making that possible. Also, amplify local good is the second one. That's what Jesus said, let your light shine before others, that they see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And what he's talking about is people who don't know God are thankful for God, even though they may not even believe in him. They're just thankful that because of what you're doing as you put God's love into practice in a way that they can see it. It's good works that people can see. And when they see it, glorify God in heaven. And that is happening like crazy at Local Good through our Local Good efforts. And thousands of people are participating and volunteering and being ministered to and being helped by that. And I love being in different environments where I'll meet people, even from other religions or sometimes just no religion at all, who maybe would have had a dim view or do have a dim view of Christianity. And when they find out that I'm somehow part of Chase Oaks Church, they're like, oh, wow, we really love what Chase Oaks does in the community. And that's what Jesus told us to do, and is to grow the reputation of Jesus in a way that draws people to him. And so thank you for all that you're doing to make Local Good possible. And by the way, you may not realize this, but now other churches around the country are looking at that approach and what we're doing and doing the same thing where they are. So there's thousands and thousands and thousands of more people being impacted around the country because of you and your involvement and your generosity. And then activating our spaces. This is where reimagine church, to think, okay, how can we reimagine church for the next generation? How can we reimagine church as a way of not just serving us, but serving our community, making an impact in our community, amplify Local Good. But let's talk about reimagining our spaces. Because part of Reimagine is we came to a point of decision where we said, you know what? We are not going to build church buildings anymore. We're done with that. We are going to, with our existing church buildings, how can we use those and retrofit those and find ways to not just serve our needs, but to serve the needs of the community and to have people in there all the time, to meet people in the regular rhythm of their lives. Because when you're trying to reach non-church people, church is not in the regular rhythm of their lives. A non-church person doesn't wake up on Sunday morning thinking, where am I going to go to church? Now, they will come if we invite them and all that. We will always make them invitational. We'll always have our services be that way. But increasingly, that's probably not going to be the first step for somebody. Like a lot of people will more easily say yes to come serve with me, like we just heard Local Good. And I hope it's a great way to invite people. Hey, come serve with me. Or come sit with me in a series. But even thinking before that, how can we do church in a way and use our facilities in a way that rather than just being like an NFL stadium that's used once a week and then sits empty, how can we have our buildings full all the time and meet people in the regular rhythm of their life? So you see that, for example, with Pathways, the daycare center, child care center, because people need child care. And at Sloan Creek, we're trying to get there, working with the city to get there, but we want all of our campuses to provide for that. And on purpose, we didn't make it like Little Jesus Daycare for church people. And not that that'd be necessarily a bad thing, but we want it to be for the community. And that's because we want it. And so we've been able to connect with a whole lot of families we never would have connected with otherwise because of that. Or you look here at our Legacy campus at Local Good Coffee, which is a problem because I'm kind of addicted now. I think I've gone 5 times this week. So that's good, but I am addicted, which is crazy, right? I hated coffee and now I'm addicted. I guess that's the way it works. But with Local Good Coffee, This is crazy. If you go down there, if you don't go in regularly, you got to go in every once in a while because because it has worked. You talk about meeting people in the regular rhythm of their lives, whether it's pickleball, because that is in the regular rhythm of people's lives, drinking coffee is, and working and fellowshipping and commingling and all that happens down there. And it's enabled us over this time to touch about 60,000 people that we never would have impacted or touched just doing church, which is 60,000 people. Pretty crazy. I was talking to an atheist who wanted to talk with me more because he's a friend of somebody at Chase Oaks because he saw what we were doing and he goes there a lot. And he's like, hey, do you realize there are people in burqas and people from other cultures that are coming here and you're providing a space for people like that even though they're not you? And I was like, yeah, that's what we do. We love people. And we want to provide a safe place for anybody and everybody to be able to come and be loved and be accepted and find community. And he said, well, I want to talk more. And we want to continue to do that more. So when we think about doing our new campuses, when I say not building church buildings, we're just saying not conventional church, but we want to build like from scratch, start doing our campuses, when we build new campuses, to say, how can we meet needs in the community? How can we connect with people in the regular rhythm of their lives? Where, hey, it's kind of like people are there all the time. And by the way, we do church here, as opposed to the other way around. And so when we began praying for how to do that, and we, raised money and all that to do that and set aside a good bit of, in the budget for that, we didn't have land. We didn't have anybody interested yet. It was a scary thing 2 years ago. And we just prayed, God, we believe you're nudging us to do this, but in order to really do this, we need to either partner with a big developer, which would be okay, but way more importantly, if we could partner with a city that would have the same heartbeat, that we could say, hey, let's do this together, and they would have as much invested in it working as we do to say, let's make sure people are here all the time and that we're actually we're able to meet people in right, where they're at. And so we didn't have that. And so we started praying and all that. And here's what you find when you follow Jesus is he's not the one that's behind. He's ahead of us. And he was already working. So when we talked to the city of Melissa, which is this growing community north of us on 75, what we didn't know is they were waiting for somebody to say exactly what we came to them and said, we want to do a public-private partnership to not just do church, but to be a blessing to the city and for it to be like a hub of the community. And they were like, wow, that's exactly what we've been holding this incredible piece of property for, because we want it for the best and highest use. We've saved it for. But what we need, we can't do on our own. We don't have the money to build the event center. We want this to be like a hub of the community, a place where there are restaurants and green space and opportunity for people to come and hang out. We want an event center there that people are using all the time. We have the land, but we needed a partner. And we're like, well, yeah, we're looking to do all that, but we don't have the land, and we're looking for a partner. And it was almost like God was involved in it, because of course he was. And because we were both praying and looking for the same thing. And it's incredible. I mean, it's hard to communicate how crazy it is that we're partnering with the city of Melissa. They're investing millions of dollars of land, and it's going to be ours. I mean, we'll close on it this summer. And we will build an event center that they'll use. That's what we want. And it's just nuts. When I talk to friends, I've got a friend that's a pastor in California, north of San Diego. I was telling him what's going on, and he was like, now that's crazy. It's like, you realize in California, they would vote us down even being able to build a church building, much less, let's partner together to be a blessing. That's just nuts. It's crazy. And so we will, all the big hurdles are done. We should be able to close, because there's all these time frames you have to do when you do stuff for the cities and governments. So this summer should be able to close, and we're working with architects and all that, and then with builders to hopefully be able as soon as possible to begin to break ground. And we'll start that campus in August in a school in McKinney in the Trinity Falls area. Ray Diaz, who was on our board, elder board, is that was another miracle as he became available. There's not a better person on the planet to be the campus pastor up there than Ray. And so we're just very excited about that. So anyway, that's what's happening with Reimagine and what God is doing. And the opportunity is way bigger than we thought. And by the way, there are also people around the country who are looking at that and who are thinking, man, why haven't we thought this way before? Like reimagine spaces and not build church buildings, but communities, and all that. And by the way, they also generate revenue. In the past, we've always had ministry dollars that fund buildings, but what if we had buildings that funded ministry? And that'd be pretty cool, right? And that's what we're going to be able, to do. And so it's, anyway, it's crazy, crazy exciting stuff. And that's the vision part of it. And then the funding part of it, the resourcing part of it, let me give an update there too, because many of us are part of that. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of Chase Oakers who, above and beyond our regular giving, said, yeah, we want to be part of this. And it was a faith gift and a sacrificial gift, and many people are still completing those. But this is at the 2-year mark, and it's a 2-year project. And again, I know people through the end of the year will be giving. But here's what I want us to pray about when it comes to that. Because in order to do this, the opportunity is bigger than we thought. We need to finish really strong to do it well, and we really want to do it well, and be a good steward of the opportunity. And what typically happens, like a typical campaign when you do something like this, is you get 85% of what you raised. That's $15 million. So, be 13 or something like that, or 13, I guess. And that's what we're on track to do right now, is an 85% campaign, which is not terrible. I mean, that's kind of what happens generally. We're praying that this will not be typical. In fact, it'd be crazy untypical, and to get to the 100% mark. Because that's really what we're going to have to do in order to do everything that's there. So please be praying that we'll get to the 100% mark over these next months. And so when you came in, you got a little card. Go ahead and pull that out, and we'll look at it together. And because you think, well, how could we get to 100%? Because, some people give, pledge, and then they're not able to, or whatever happens, something happens and they can't, so how do you do that? Well, one way, if you're new to Chase Oaks and you're part of this place and you're open to pray about, okay, yeah, I'd love to jump into that. There's about 2,000 Chase Oakers that weren't here 2 years ago when we made these pledges. And so if God has brought you here and you're new and you want to be part of this above and beyond a regular giving, that would be awesome, because it's going to take a number of people to do that. Or maybe you're not new in the 2 years, but when we did it 2 years ago, you were new enough, you were kind of kicking the tires of Chase Oaks. You're like, yeah, I don't think I was ready to sign up for something like that. But hey, I am now, because I have some relationship and trust and all that. So you can dive in. I'll tell you what to do with the cards in a minute. And then for those of us who've already committed, one option is I will finish strong, or have finished strong by completing my original commitment. That's something huge to celebrate. Christy and I are thankful. We made a pledge. It was scary. That's faith. And sacrificial. That's, it just was. And we gladly did that, and able to finish it last year. And we're thankful for that. And if that's where you're at, that's awesome. But let us know that, hey, maybe I have or haven't completed it, but I believe I will. That'll help us for planning. And then others of us may be at a place, hey, I've completed or I will complete it, but I'd like to increase my original commitment. Either my willingness has grown or my ability has grown. And if you can do that cheerfully, do it. If you're going to do that grumpy, like, hey, I've already committed my deal, leave me alone, then great. I mean, I'm not trying to, be just, if you can do it cheerfully, let's do it. And for Christy and me, we're in that category. We can grow our giving and give over these next year, give significantly more, we believe, and we're excited about doing that. And so some of you are in that category, and that would be great. Others might be in the other category of saying, hey, I made a commitment, I made a faith pledge, but the nature of faith pledges, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I had a downturn. It did not go as well, or I lost a job or had a downturn or something like that, and I need to change my pledge and revise it downward. And that's fine. That's great. But let us know so that way we can plan for that And there's no harm in that. Like, that's the nature of when you plan and make a pledge for something, you don't know what's going to happen. And so that's helpful. So I'm going to give you just a very short time, not enough time to complete it. But I just want to get us started. And if you're here as a couple, you may just want to talk a little bit, pray a little bit. I'm going to give you literally 60 seconds. And please stay in the room if you're not participating, because it'll be really distracting otherwise for those of us who are open to this and just to get started. I found that with these things, if I don't get started, I'm going to forget about it. So I'm going to get us started. And there's little, you'll see Imagine things with hearts, and you can put it in there if you're ready, or we'll have these over the next couple weeks out there too. I'll also send out an email with an online form. But let me give you just a little bit to get started, and then we've got one more thing to do. Well, I know you're probably not done yet, but thank you for being the kind of church that you are, because honestly, it'd be easy as a church just to kind of coast, to be comfortable, and like reimagining church to reach a whole new thing and all that. And there's excitement in that, but it's also not comfortable. It requires faith and sacrifice. But Jesus is always on the move, and that's what he calls us to do, because the church is not for church people, it's for Jesus and his mission to reach those who are yet to be here and to be part of his mission of making this world better. And thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your involvement. Those of you who serve, those of you who invite, those of you who give, God is using you. And let's keep stretching, and as a church, defy the gravitational pull that will always, as individuals and as a church, make it about us, and to say, no, we don't want to live small. We want to follow Jesus and what he's doing in the world. And what we've seen over the years is he is more than able to do immeasurably beyond what we could ask or imagine. In fact, in the church, before we moved here, we had these big banners in the previous church that had this verse on it. And I want us to read this together, because whatever we can imagine or reimagine, he's able to do infinitely more. When we think 100% or whatever, that's not a whole lot to God. And so let's read this together from Ephesians 3. Go ahead and put it up there. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Father, I do thank you for your mission. I thank you that you love to use people like us to do what you're doing in the world. And I thank you for all you're doing through our church, through Reimagine, for these opportunities that you're opening up that we could have never opened up on our own. And I pray that you'd help us to be good stewards of those opportunities, that you'd help us to be faithful, you'd help us to know what that means for us, because the church is just us. And as you continue to guide us forward. And we praise you and thank you that you are more than able. In Jesus' name, amen.